Hi, my name is Darius, and the person I am set to be researching is Elia Kazan. I am doing it in an unconventional style that is different to what Miss Belinda Barnes is telling us to do it, but I will explain after. You'll get a written explanation on why I chose to do it in this style. It has to do with the person that I'm researching. So, I have a few notes I wouldn't be reading. So, I started off with a quote from Elia Kazan. I learned that I was only good when I was trying to please myself and not some superior or fame, money, or power. That basically encompasses him in total. So, Elia Kazan was a playwright, author, actor, founder of the Actors Studio, but most importantly, what was most important in his life and to him was that he was a director. He was a film director, to be specific, and he dreamt of this. That was his goal, his life passion ever since he started acting. And he basically starts off his story not on the side of the globe at all. He was born in the Ottoman Empire. Funny way to say old Istanbul, basically. He was born in Constantinople in 1909, September 7th to be exact. And he moved across to New York at the age of 4 with his family. His family had a rug trading business, so they got the chance to move to New York with that, and he basically grew up in America. So his full name, his full name was Kazan Douglas, because his family was ethnically Greek. Came across to Turkey, went to America. After that, he basically grew up in finding his love for acting and eventually went to Williams College, then Yale University, and graduated with a Master's of Fine Arts in Drama, which is quite a feat. I'm not doubting that at all. And he then went on to join the group theater. Now, the group theater was relatively small. It was like a family, basically. And they put on a lot of small productions. I wouldn't say small productions. They put on a lot of productions, let's just say that. And he went on to be in a lot of their productions, including Waiting for Lefty. Waiting for Lefty was one of the more important roles that he had. And he also acted a lot more than he would have liked to act because he knew from since then that he didn't want to act. But of course, you don't start off directing. When he starts off directing, they start off at the bottom and work their way up. So he started off in acting on Broadway and in theater, and soon he got the chance to act in small screen tests. So he left the group theater, which they didn't like, but of course it's like leaving your family, And he got a chance to act in some small screen tests, and then got the chance to act as an actor on stage in a film. Finally, he moved across to film. He was really glad for that. And he got, how to put it? He acted in two gangster roles. One of the more important ones, the ones that you might know, is City for Conquest. He got a small part there. He was not really a big actor on screen. And then he finally got the chance to act in he finally got the chance to direct, finally, after all of this time that he spent acting. In the 1940s, he got his chance to direct his first on-screen thing, which was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Now, this was a really interesting piece. Honestly, I saw a piece of it, and it was a little insight in, I don't know how to explain it, but it was a beautiful performance. One of his first. It was challenging, of course, for Elia. He did a lot of work in that one. He also, which I'll come to later, he did what a director had to do, because one of the actresses, he got an astounding performance out of two people mainly, which was the actor James Dunn and the actress Peggy Ann Garner, my bad. And those two had an amazing dynamic. He observed it from behind and was like, yes, he could work with this. He worked with Peggy Ann Garner and tried to bring out a actual natural reaction. We're going through quickly. He also did a play called Gentleman's Agreement, which was heavily focused on anti-Semitism, which was clearly not something you would see on screen in the 1940s. It was addressed then. He founded the Actors Studio in 1947, which dealt mainly with method acting, and as we know, the Lee Strasberg went on to become head of the Actors Studio, and it's well renowned. People like Marlon Brando, who I'm coming up to, Marlon Brando, Marilyn Monroe, a few other major actors went and studied method acting, which was his preferred style of acting. They studied it in the Actors Studio, which Kazan, as well as a few others, founded. Something I should bring up is that he was involved in a scandal. I'm not sure if it was in the 1950s. It was around the 1950s, yes. Late 1940s, early 1950s. He was well known for joining the Communist Party, which was not something ideal in a democratic society. He joined the Communist Party and its Marxist ideals in around the 1940s, and he left about a year and a half later when they planned to strike in front of the group theater, and of course he couldn't do that. So a few years later, he was called by the House of Un-American Activities Committee, which were investigating, of course, Communist Party and the, I believe they call them leftists, which is different to the leftists we know today. It's, I believe, separate. And Kazan was called to the bar to basically they tried to get him to, snitch, basically. That's the modern term for it, snitch. And what he did was that when he was threatened with being blacklisted, and of course with the threat of being blacklisted to somebody whose whole life has been filmed, he said he became a whistleblower, as they call it, and an informer, and told the committee of 8 members of the party, as well as some other things. So, of course, he was allowed to keep his career, but former friends and colleagues that he might have known in the past completely shunned him because of it, for a good reason. I could understand their motives. Some of them never forgave him. Some of them forgave him for what he did. And he heavily defended himself. Heavily. Other people, Arthur Miller, who was a former friend of his and that he lost his friendship with because of this scandal. Arthur Miller, the Hollywood 10, I believe they call them, did not deny themselves. They didn't defend themselves as heavily as Kazan did. And led to a few broken friendships. A lot of the scandal, yeah, a lot of the scandal that surrounded him was mainly focused on that. Back to his works, though, he was friends with Arthur Miller, and Arthur Miller let him direct the film adaptation of Death of a Salesman. And Death of a Salesman was one of his first breakout movies. He definitely did an amazing job with Death of a Salesman. Was nominated for a few awards for the films after From Death of a Salesman Go Forward. It was a great time for him. So from the late 1940s, early 1950s, he had the ball rolling, basically. So some of the plays that he did were Streetcar Named Desire, which brought about that was his debut performance on film, I believe, for Marlon Brando. Now, Marlon Brando was one of Kazan's, he basically found him and studied at the Actors Studio for a while, came on to film. He did the theater version of Streetcar Named Desire first, and then came on to film, and everybody was shocked at the raw emotion that Brando brought out. And that was the style that Kazan had. Kazan had an emotional, raw style that drawed out a lot of the rawness, basically. That's the most I could say. It wasn't seen before on film. It was completely new, and they loved it, of course. It was amazing. Panic in the Streets was one of the first films for him to shoot in a place like this. It wasn't a film set. It was in the city itself, and he loved that about directing. He thought that the city was amazing to work in. He liked working in places. He could have worked in the film studio, yeah, but he loved the authenticity. He loved the bustling of the city, the genuine, the realism that the city brought to the screen. He also had a performance. He did the directing of Viva Zapata. Brando also starred in that. And I believe this was around the time he had the testimony between the Communist Party. He also did a performance in 1954 called On the Waterfront, which was after this entire drama with the house went on, and a lot of critics and people that watched the show believe that it had something to do with him explaining the betrayal of the party, and I believe he didn't see it like that. It wasn't a main influence on him, but personally, I think it came out in his work. Even if he didn't want it to, it still showed itself, like a lot of internal issues show with directors. It won 8 Academy Awards, which is a lot of awards for one piece. Leading director, leading actor, which was Brando again. Brando with his amazing acting style. And Brando was not one of the only people that Kazan brought forth to the screen. He also brought forth James Dean. James Dunn is the other one. James Dean, who was the lead actor in East of Eden. East of Eden was, personally, I saw a piece of the film as well. It was also really raw. James Dean was not an actor, first of all. He was not an actor. And Kazan had this way of pulling non-actors onto the screen for the genuine show of it. It showed everything on the screen. You didn't see actor training. You saw personality, you saw realism, and that was his goal. So he did a good job there. He also brought forth Eli Wallach, which was on the Waterfront. Eva Marie Saint. No, sorry. Eva Marie Saint was on the Waterfront. She was the love interest of Brando. And yeah, basically he went on to make a few more amazing productions. Baby Doll, 1956, also controversial because of the said eroticism and the childlike portrayal of the main actress, but yeah, that's the most I will say on that topic. He also did Splinter in the Grass in 1961. The last of his productions is what I will end off with, because this is the one I felt the most strongly about. America, America was a production that Kazan had in his head for a long while, way after he did everything, the documentaries, which he did earliest in his career. He did a few documentaries. Way after everything, he had this set production on his mind for 30 years, and he didn't do it for the money, he did it for himself. He literally had a producer pull out of the film and didn't have the money to put on the film anymore, and he was stuck in Istanbul, and somebody from Warner Brothers came and said, okay, we'll put on the production. Of course, he didn't get any money for it because, of course, it was on Warner Brothers terms, but it was moving. He plucked up yet another non-actor and put them in America and said, okay, you know what, come and act for me. He chose this person because of he chose a lot of the actors for their emotional scars, for the actual life experience of the actor. And he plucked him down in America and told him to learn English. Had trouble with that, so of course, if you watch America, America, he's not speaking fluent English. He did not speak fluent English in real life. But America, America is basically the story of Kazan himself. The story of Kazan himself, which was basically the journey that he had to make in Turkey. Well, not him, but his uncle, his ancestors basically had to make to come across to America. And it was a struggle. I saw the desperation, the hard work, the reflection of Kazan, and it was moving, to say the least. It also won his final Academy Award nomination, or his final Academy Award. And it was his personal project that he had always lived to see. He always wanted to put on screen, and he finally got the chance to do it. I think the final words I'll say to end off this 20-minute presentation is that Kazan was a brilliant director who did what he had to do to put something new onto film, something that no one had ever seen before, something that was fresh and raw and gave the realistic point of view that difficult discussions that people didn't talk about before and people didn't want to see in daily life, but got to see like a glimpse of what it was really like. And I appreciate now what he has done for the film industry today.